Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is February 12th, Friday. Let's hop in. Starting late, or maybe just what is the new standard start time. Like, frankly, at this point, even saying that there is going to be a standard start time is, or mentioning that you're starting late is kind of ridiculous. It's just like, my insomnia is all over the place and I basically sleep in, wake up, whatever, whenever. There's no consistency there. Um, I've been playing Danganronpa for the catch up, and there is like one thing at the beginning of chapter 3 that is, I think, really weird in that they have you play as Aoi, one of the characters, or Hina is her nickname, and in that there is also other weirdness because I still have uh, I'm still not 100% sure whether they flipped the names for the English translation or if it is that they are saying the family name first and then the personal name second, um, like they would in Japanese, or if they flipped it for the rest of the world where they say the personal name first and the family name second. There's extra complication all around that. Certainly, I'm gonna replace this one because Runecraft is always a hassle. Yeah, that was really helpful. Um, so you start playing as this girl Hina, and at the beginning of every chapter in Danganronpa, you've just had a classroom trial and figured out who the murderer is, and then seen them slightly comedically and very brutally murdered. So Hina's lying on top of her bed, not under the sheets, in sleepwear. So she's wearing white panties and um, a top, one of those loose fitting uh, tops that girls wear. But these are supposed to be um, high school kids. So we're getting this like cheesecake scene at the very beginning of it, and she's crying. So you're supposed to be emotional too, and so then you're inviting weird combination of focus there, depending on the player, um, and then you go through. Oh, I would say about 12 to 20 lines of dialogue as this kind of teaser to the episode, playing as Aoi. Um, and then it's completely unimportant scene that was like custom animated. And you then go back to playing as the main character, Makoto. And it just doesn't really make like a lot of sense. Like that was a good use of your animation budget to have a cheesecake scene for and a teaser to the episode. The whole game is really written like it was designed to be an anime series. It's very TV centric, or maybe manga centric if it was a monthly manga issue, and there was a um, real delay in releases. That might make sense too. Um, but as an actual video game, it just seems kind of awkwardly paced. There is also a whole bunch of points in the game that are becoming blaringly obvious where you get into rooms and there's all the other students around you and you can talk to all the other students, but every student will tell you that really you just need to talk to this person and only this person, so they're just wasting your time if you don't just immediately talk to that one person. Um, so, yeah, more and more as the school unlocks in Danganronpa, the levels unlock effectively, it is becoming less important to wander around and look. And frankly, the whole game might have been better without any of that. if it was just more of a linear visual novel, and you're it's becoming less important to really talk to people. And that does introduce an interesting idea that, for me personally, I might eventually develop a style of being way more laid back. Almost every game I play, it's always OCD collectibles, try to get 100% of the game. Don't go super crazy with it if the game's too hard or anything like that, but if I think I can get 100% of the dialogue, if I think I can get 100% of the achievements, if I think I can get the perfect ending of a game, I'll try and do it. But for visual novels, perhaps it is better to take more of a attitude, kind of like how I had some of the Telltale games, where whatever ending I chose was the ending I was going to live with. That Game of Thrones, Telltale game was a kind of great example of that, where I think you were going to get a bad ending no matter what, because it's Game of Thrones, and so I was very satisfied with the ending I got, even though the main character you're playing as gets like killed at the end of it. Spoiler for a very old Telltale game you probably shouldn't bother to play. And plenty of other people got killed along the way too. I wonder if in the actual Game of Thrones books or TV series there was some diminishing interests because of the fact that so many characters were getting killed, because they were intriguing characters to start with, but yeah, if you had like one favorite and that favorite character is no longer in the story, then you probably might have lost some interest in the show. So yeah, that's a tough thing to pull off, certainly. A glimpse into the future is only the beginning. So yeah, is there anything else to say about Danganronpa? It's just kind of taking its sweet time, and I do kind of wonder. I'm like in the middle of chapter 3, I think, and we still haven't had a murder. Instead, we've gotten this side story, which you kind of needed, because the story is you're trapped in this school and you're trying to find an escape, and chapter 1 and chapter 2 really have been nothing but, oh, somebody murdered somebody because the person trapped in the school wants you to murder people. So, like, everybody was kind of too eagerly playing along with the murder games and not really succeeding. They were trying, but they weren't succeeding by any means as far as actually stopping or even beginning to have any progress at all towards escaping. There is also weirdness around that cheesecake scene with Aoi, in the fact that there were 2 previous like upskirt shots where they could have easily shown underwear, and they colored those in earlier in the game. And at a certain point, it almost feels like they may have done that intentionally, because they knew any Western video game journalist, any mainstream Western video game journalist, would probably not play 20 hours into a visual novel game. So thus they've eliminated anybody who would have been flippant and not stuck with the game, and any Western journalists who would try to cancel the game. Although if that was their thinking, they were fairly prophetic about it, because it's not like Danganronpa 1 is a particularly new game. I think it came out like in '92. But yeah, that might have been the thought pattern to it. Otherwise, it may have just been kind of a flippant decision one way or the other. It would be hard to actually give that amount of credit to Danganronpa, considering how in the dialogue Danganronpa is constantly uh, within every 45 minutes, there's at least one point where one character makes some kind of dirty, horny joke, or if anything, it kind of feels like you're playing one of those 80s, something very similar to like the 80s sex comedies like Porky's or something, where out of the blue you're spying in the girls' locker room or something. Well,
this match is mine.
This is real. You like the cold? You like the cold?
and yeah, I don't know.
You like the cold?
I think Danganronpa in particular draws the characters to be so weird and unique that they really don't fall down that route of being so characters that could be particularly attractive looking, for my own subjective opinion. Even the girls that are drawn to look more attractive, it just doesn't really work, particularly nowadays when it's all moe characters. I would say that you sort of have that even with older 80s and 70s anime too. It's like when they were animating the characters to look fairly human looking, then they just looked fairly human looking, but worse because the animation wasn't that good. But yeah, it would be very ridiculous to kind of fall in love with any of the characters knowing that they were going to get murdered. The fashionista girl in Danganronpa is a great example of that, because she gets like murdered before she has any character development at all. Otherwise, I've started just randomly hanging out with characters, and the whole hanging out with people and getting to know them a little bit better is a system that also seems very broken in Danganronpa, because you at most are guaranteed 3 hangout sections, which in chapter 3 they broke it up with some other like forced sections so that you're getting actual events that are pertinent to the story more integrated into the free time hangout sections, which can definitely confuse the chronology of things, but pretty much it seems like there might be some kind of new game plus mechanic where you keep your relationships with the characters that you developed the first time, and you pretty much have to hang out with each character completely from the beginning of the game. So at this moment, I would say probably using a walkthrough is smarter, just from the beginning of Danganronpa, and picking your character that you're very interested in hanging out with and sticking with that one character from the beginning is probably the smartest thing. But also then that creates a scenario where you don't have other skills, and playing it on medium, there is still one minigame mechanic where it is fairly difficult. So I am trying to see if there is some skill that in the rhythm game minigame that you do once per trial. I'd like to see a way to make that slower or make that just work, because it is very weird to have this like minigame function and it come out of nowhere. Alright, well.
Spell looks so sweet, you'll get cavities.
So yeah, my way of playing it the way I'm doing it right now might be the better way, to kind of hang out with everybody until they give you at least one ability or they die, and then you're never going to get that ability if they do have a skill. And then I think there might be tier 2 level skills that you get if you hang out with people long enough, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
sweet, you'll get cavities.
So yeah, I feel like I'm probably not playing the game particularly perfectly, but also there's so much dialogue there that, and no real skip function, at least in the first playthrough, that I feel like it would be hard to play the game and skip the parts that I would want to skip, which is the actual main story stuff. So I wouldn't be upset, frankly, if at the end of the game you actually just got to hang out with people as much as you want. There's also the whole finding Monokuma tokens and getting presents to give to people, and that as a mechanic is kind of added on and unnecessary. Do I want to draw a card for the effect of spell boosting? Just a couple of cards, I guess, like, well. Yeah, but yeah. It would be almost nicer to do that, because what it dangerously is approaching is an idea of potentially just going and getting a save file to get the maximum instead of actually playing the game more, because I don't think there really is enough meat on the bone with Danganronpa to make you want to play it a second time, and unless the story changes drastically, which I don't think it really could. At best, I'm thinking one character, the fashionista character, maybe, just maybe, could survive, and some other character that's unimportant might die in her place. But I don't know. I don't know if I really believe that is the way it's gonna play. Let's see if we destroy this, then do this, and then do this. It can save me a little bit of time. Well, moving on from Danganronpa, because it is just an incredibly slow visual novel like the rest of them, which I think I definitely should probably toggle between visual novels and JRPGs. There's going to be quite a few of them that come out somewhat close to each other, and it feels like if I'm not careful, I'm going to just end up turning my entire channel into covering visual novels, which is not my intent. Certainly also they're going to be longer running series, which it also implies to me that I would probably make more content if I wasn't doing visual novels. But there is also an argument about the I haven't used this phrase in a while, the butt in seat economics there, of perhaps because I'm playing a single episode that is 2 hours long of a visual novel, that lets me make 2 hours of content, whereas if I was going to make 2 1-hour long episodes of a different game, I probably would get up and take a break for an hour or two in between that, and the more breaks, the slower the development of content. But I also don't want to turn making video content for my YouTube channel into factory work and schedule myself in a even slightly large amount of efficiency. I want to be particularly inefficient because the content I am creating is based on my own feeling at the time and my own like mental energy. So if I was just churning out episodes 8 hours a day, hour after hour, you would see me devolve a lot more into not having anything really to say and not really caring about things. I think I would, in a lot of ways, go down a route similar to like Game Grumps and how they're playing Danganronpa, where it's just two friends hanging out and they're following a walkthrough, and they really don't care about the game or the story at all. They're just using it as a background for their improv comedy, which their improv comedy often just devolves into them making poop jokes. Which that's fine. That's I'm sure what a lot of gamers do, but is that content that really should be at the top of YouTube's video game coverage? Probably not, in my opinion. So yeah, I don't want to become that too much. Although in all fairness, that is exactly what my Binding of Isaac footage was after about 10 or 20 full runs, is that I was just pretty much ranting and talking without really caring too much about what Binding of Isaac was, what was happening with the game. But you may also notice that my channel kind of quickly shifted away from that once I realized that I had said everything I had to say, and I had really just established what then became a running tradition of going on the same dozen or so rants that I have in my head. Which, if anything, I've perhaps been shockingly too consistent on the same rants.
Golly, it's chilly here.
Okay. Two damage.
Mana, come forth.
Ooh, this is real scum. You like the cold? I feel slushy.
Well, I can do a little bit of damage. Since it's Friday, I want to finish particularly early, so we need to get into the video game news. Also, I am happy to report that after Wednesday's stream, I got my new router, which is just a new version. Hopefully a new revision, but I don't think it really is. Hopefully it's just a newer one and not one that's been sitting on the shelf for 5 years somewhere. You would be actually surprised how often that is the case, where you will find something like in office supply stores that has just been sitting on the shelf forever. There's a decent number of stores, office supply stores and things like that, where the manager of the store is not even allowed to mark down things, so even the manager of the store may see it has been sitting on the shelf forever, and he can't get rid of it. And the idea of having a store where you're paying rent, and you are still filling your shelves with the same garbage, it feels very much like running a bodega. Some office supply stores that I've seen. But yeah, my new router has been running with the default software. Not well, per se. We can see the streaming here is fine, and the quality service without any quality service enabled, which does make an argument that maybe I don't need as intricate quality of service as I thought I did or wanted to have. But both the 2 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz are working, where the 2 gigahertz just stopped completely working on my other one, my old router. So now that a couple of days in the stream here has worked with the default software, I know the hardware works. I know that my old hardware had just worn out, and so it is now going to be a case of just installing the DDWRT firmware on the new router, and then trying with a light touch to set the settings like they were set before without also creating any new problems, which hopefully that works. Like the easiest way, of course, would be to just load the backup onto it, but I don't want to copy mistakes, and I kind of want the default settings, particularly on the Wi-Fi, because with the default software it is just the same speeds and everything, so perhaps some of my optimizations for specific channels on the Wi-Fi and specific widths of the frequencies, maybe all of that is just like unnecessary, and maybe that all of that over a decent number of years did just burn out the circuitry for no good reason. I wouldn't be 100% surprised if it really was the case that a lot of the double band and triple band widths of the 5 gigahertz frequencies and the 2 gigahertz frequencies are features that you can use but actually don't actually help any, and maybe are just draining the batteries of cell phones and other devices connecting to them more than they are benefiting much, because it's hardly like my ISP is giving me a ridiculous amount of internet anyways. And still my main problem is that that I just don't have enough upload speed, and that you're never going to get around that. Like for a second there, I was actually considering the Starlink internet just as a backup, which that really wouldn't be good for streaming by any means, or even really downloading, but just having a satellite internet connection of some pay per yeah, for me I'd like it as a backup, so I'd kind of like it like pay per gigabyte, where it could hook up to the satellite for the many times that my local ISP is down. But often when my local ISP is down, it's because something in the entire area is down, so it's not even like if I got a different ISP in the same area that there's any chance the internet would be up at that point. And I wouldn't be surprised if what that really boils down to is, unless the Starlink satellite internet has ways around that, I wouldn't be surprised if even the Starlink internet would go down, because it probably does try to just bounce the internet to receiver stations that are somewhat close to the same region. So yeah, there is, from what I've seen, some intercommunication between the different satellites. So there is this possibility that you could connect to a satellite in the Starlink internet, and then it would bounce the internet up to a different satellite that is either in higher orbit and further forward or backward in its orbit, so it would be hitting a different region. So in theory it could fix that. In theory, Starlink done well could give internet to everyone, potentially very cheaply, if not free. But like a lot of Elon Musk's projects, the adoption and completion of projects is still yet to be proven. But yeah, so I'm gonna have extra work to do this weekend with the router, and I'm gonna have to try and flash the broken router so that I can load the old settings on the broken router, so then I can look at the broken router to move the files over, including the JFFS partition, which I'm gonna have to synchronize using rsync over to the new router. so that I can move all of the custom code stuff I had over and not lose that, which I'm not sure I haven't already lost all of that code, because I frankly would not be surprised if when I installed the default firmware I did actually eliminate the JFS partition, which I think I had some backups for that, but it's probably pretty old backups too.
No dirty tricks.
So
The Uncharted
that would kind of suck, but at the moment, when I had to make the decision to figure out if the router was going to work at all, trying to back up that software and that partition was just not enough of a priority, and actually kind of hard to do. No, it would have been super easy to do. There's a USB plug on the back of each router. I could have easily plugged in a USB. It didn't even occur to me. I could have just plugged in a USB thumb drive to the back of the router, and that would have worked fine. Well, I have Dead or Alive 6 here. I've also finally managed to figure out how to get the minimal scroll bar to show up on most pages. I don't know why this is here. It was on sale. That's right. Right. We are in the middle of the Chinese New Year sale, so Dead or Alive 6 right now, the digital deluxe edition is $23.99, which is still a fairly high price, frankly, but for fighting games, I don't think you're ever going to get much of a discount. We can see it's mostly positive. For personal visual taste, playing as the Dead or Alive characters might be interesting for this one character, but honestly, and these two female characters, but I'm not really seeing a lot of interesting looking male characters, or even a lot of characters in general. That's probably because the free game version mechanics here of the core fighters, and Dead or Alive perhaps is more interested in putting characters in bikini sets than creating more characters, which I could see how that would be interesting. Being the 6th game in a series, there undoubtedly are some elements here that I would not be familiar with. Alright.
A glimpse into the future is only the beginning. I am beyond
this.
prophecy.
I can't sing
And
another
then do
note.
this and hope it hits this.
Bone dry.
And then in turn. So I guess the question to ask in the game being on sale is pretty much the same standard question. Let's do this a little bit differently. Normally I would talk about sales at the end of the stream, but let's just do it now. So we have the Steam Lunar New Year sale, and it's the Year of the Ox, which took me longer to figure that out than is reasonable. They are, with most of these sales, not doing full takeovers, it looks like, on the screens, so we still have some very basic AAA games being advertised. Some of these are actually very, very old. There is an interesting thing here that Red Dead Online has Asian writing on it. Witcher 3 for $9.99. Man, if I hadn't just spent $250, I didn't plan on spending on a new router. Some of these games I might consider getting. There might be some Fallout 4 DLC that I still need to buy before I cover that, since someone gifted me Fallout 4 and I haven't gotten around to doing it. Wrath for $14 is probably a decent price, and it's probably the best you're gonna get, which it does sound like it might be more interesting too. Like, I was gonna do But I guess I can do this,
Spell looks so sweet.
and I can
you'll
do
get cavity.
this,
Is that a
and then
human?
I guess just end the turn. So let's see what the Steam Lunar New Year sales got on sale for us without trying to hover on things. Life is Strange Before the Storm, $3.39. That's a decent price. But then you have things like Shadow of the Tomb Raider that's not really getting mentioned. Then some trickery, certainly with like Life is Strange 2 Episode 1 being free, but the rest of the game and its price not really being noted. There's plenty of room under each one of these. How can I hover on this without hovering something larger? On the black bar at the bottom of each of these games, there is plenty of room for them to develop a system where it could be the price, initial price versus total price, and that is something that they probably should implement. I was just watching a video yesterday talking about how a lot of the apps on iOS have these like weekly, monthly subscription fees so that they can run these scams and charge people a lot more money than they think they're going to be charged. And they were saying how it would be very easy to just annualize it and say, in a year, this is how much you're going to pay, or in the lifetime, this is how much you're going to pay. And it would be helpful, frankly, if there was an initial price, and there's room here even for like initial price, discount, and then overall cost, or total cost should be just like an infinity symbol if there's any kind of subscriptions, because they have gotten very fishy, to say the least, around hiding prices on the Steam storefront, as they try to do all over the place, through like DLC and episodic content. And that was the whole point, was to hide the price and make a game feel like it was cheaper than it was, and then deliver a unfinished product. Like Captain Tsubasa here is down to $35.99, but it's also mixed, so I really wished Captain Tsubasa Rise of a New Champion was good, but it wasn't. Here we have a card game around birds watching, which that's an interesting idea. I'm gonna open that in a new tab just to make sure that's on the fall list. Then Spellforce 3 looks like a fantasy game for $12.49. Vampire Bloodlines 2 is 50% off. Like in any sale, a 50% discount is really not enough to catch my attention, particularly in a point where I'm not really planning on spending money. Like Titan's Quest here for $4.99 is probably a decent price at 75% off. Ni no Kuni, I think there's no DLC on that, so 70% off on that's probably the best you're going to get. Sword Art Online is questionable whether you need to play any Sword Art Online games at this point. I'm not sure there are going to be any more Sword Art Online anime seasons.
Is that a human?
Let's see, we have, what is this? Kokatsu Party for $47.99. So you have a full-on adult game, sex game on the sale, so that's always nice to see. Then we have what,
Let the clouds roll
MMO RPG for $8.99. Darksiders Genesis 50% off for $14.99. That's probably the best deal you're going to get for a while. Journey for $9.79. That's probably the best deal you're going to get for a while. House Party still getting a big push because of the Game Grumps characters in there, and streamers just thinking that, like, there is this big danger, certainly for a game like House Party, and not to say anything specific about House Party, but there's this danger that has become this kind of underground niche popular game, and I have a small fear that that may not have been a naturally generated niche popularity as much as it might have been that the creators of the game became very good friends or were good friends with a lot of famous streamers, and there might be a lot of cronyism happening in the background. Some call that business, and fair enough at that point, but just doing good business. But I also do have that slight concern that
Golly, it's
that
chilly
we may
here.
eventually find out that House Party really did just pay a bunch of people to stream their game
I feel
and
sludgy.
convinced a bunch of people to buy their game, which I don't think is particularly that good. There's DLC for City Skylines. Unfortunately, I didn't like City Skylines. They are trying now more and more to promote specific categories, and we can see anime games being listed here. In fact, if anything, I would say that they literally just put it in alphabetical order, with only curating the categories, and maybe this is a little bit randomized. They even put featured games at the very end. Boneworks, Barn Finders. I thought that was still early access. Let's see if that's still early access. PC Building Simulators, $9.99. It's about as much as I think you could pay for it. We're particularly in this case, I wanted this game to be good, but it wasn't. Right now in this case, there aren't even that many new games that have come out, so you're not really in a scenario where, let's see, you're not really in a scenario where there are any new games worth that could be on discount. So a sale like this really is filling out your wish list for older games more than anything. You might get some 2020 games. Here you have a decent price, $1.99 for Plants vs. Zombie Game of the Year edition. That's only 60% off, but also it's probably the cheapest you'll get it. And I don't think there's any DLC for Plants vs. Zombies in general. Where like this Cluedo game is only 50% off, and I know there's a bunch of DLC on that. But yeah, you've got Rust and Sea of Thieves and the Halo collection. You've got Honey Pop 2. Whether you like it or not, Honey Pop 2 at the moment is the closest thing to a AAA game that is out right now, and it is going to be probably something that gets talked about a lot more than anything else consistently, because there's just not going to be any other games to talk about. So unless I can rid myself of my addiction of listening to Chat Bomb and the Beastcast, I imagine they will mention Honey Pop 2 more than they want to. Let's try some Swordcraft gameplay instead, because that did not work. Yeah, and yeah, I can see that my zoom in or something here has put a visual glitch on the screen. It almost feels like it's a book effect where, if I can not hover on anything, like it almost feels like a book effect where they're splitting the image to feel like it's a book being opened up in the middle, but I can pretty well tell it's because there was supposed to be a sidebar here, and the sidebar has been zoomed out. Let's see, like Ark and Sims 4, Monster Hunter for $19.79, Witcher 3 80% off. I don't have The Witcher 3 on Steam. I got it on Good Old Games. I'd love it if somebody gifted me The Witcher 3 with the DLC. That would give me a great excuse to play the DLC. And frankly, it'd be interesting to see how well that worked. Of course, I have to hang my head in shame and say someone already gifted me the base of Fallout 4, and I haven't gotten around to playing that. So, like, I can certainly also understand why people wouldn't want to gift me games. The same is kind of true with like Tabletop Simulator. I'd love if somebody gifted that to me. It's always on sale for $9.99, which always means that it's just not really worth it to specifically go and get it versus other things that are on more discount. And inherently, whenever I look at games and start shopping, there's enough things on sale at a higher discount that it becomes a bad choice to get something that I know is always going to go on sale. Then we come back down here, and it seems like it is the same categories again at the bottom. So if we were to click on like featured games, every day of the sale you can get a free animated ox sticker, which I imagine they also want you to check out the the curation things. I do have Slime Rancher already. The Wind Road mixed. Yeah. Seeing featured games seems to then take you to featured games under different categories, so it's kind of a category on top of other categories. But like you have Nicopera 3 here, 50% off as a featured casual game, and 112 Operator instead of 911 Operator being featured, which is interesting. So maybe they're more interested in foreigners, because I think 911 and 112 Operator is the exact same game. If it isn't, that'd be slightly interesting. That'd be an interesting spin-off sequel to a game where you play as a 911 operator. Borderlands 3 here is like 1979, but then the maximum price there, I imagine, is a lot higher once you start getting all the DLC and the season pass. We're not seeing anything here that is straight up porn except for that one game. So it might come down to a point where it feels like they're just they are throwing a bone to adult games more than they are actually well, could I have done that? Yeah, but would it have mattered? No.
Centuries pass. I remember all.
It would be a little weird though if they were to have a sale and then there was a dozen adult games, even if the truth is that there probably are a dozen adult games at any point that have outsold some of the more niche games they would want to promote. But there's ways to handle that, certainly. Also, you could easily just have an adult category and maybe one banner that says check out the adult category.
You were done for. I've got 8 transformations.
Too slow.
So like, let's just look under the anime games here. Well, first of all, we have several games here that I would question how anime they are. Like Puzzle Quest definitely doesn't feel like it should be tagged anime, so I don't know how they got down that. And then they're under all action, adventure, casual, RPG, simulation, fantasy, and visual novel. Catherine is anime. Ace Attorney is anime. Bloodstain is anime. Looking at this, for as much as I end up talking about anime and Eastern games, there's actually quite a few of them I don't own. Let me just make sure that's already open. And then when you get down here to this point, it's not talking about anime games really that much anymore. I thought I owned Dragon Ball Z, Fighter Z. Don't I? And then, yeah, you get back to Street Fighter and you're like, alright, well, I might be a Japanese company that's animating and making Street Fighter, but I don't think that falls under the category in my book under anime. Here's Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, which is the tie-in advertisement that they're doing with Shadowverse right now. So the actual number of anime games you have here under recommended for you seems to be very little. They're saying, hey, get Danganronpa 2, which I think not. Playing Danganronpa 2 that quickly, I think, would be a mistake.
The uncharted desert awaits.
I want to finish the Nonary game at least.
What do we have here?
Then if I was to click specifically under action, then we have a Senran Kagura anime game and Phantom Breaker. Battle Rounds. Let me look at that one. I'm not going to do this for all the categories by any means, but I'll do it for the anime characters. And then we're starting to see some slightly different things. Travis Strikes Again? No More Heroes? When did that come out on Steam? That Dunpachi Resurrection. And then the Neptunia game. Did I ever decide to not buy this? Co-op? They're saying those are co-op games. I wasn't 100% sure I owned Momodora. The One Punch Man game wasn't that good. So, but once you get back down to this point, it's kind of, once again, just not pushing you towards that content. And there is more now under action by far. River City Sports Cross Challenge. Do this. Do
The
this.
uncharted desert awaits.
Didn't play fast enough. Tokyo Ghoul game. Yeah, I'm not sure if looking at these games in particular isn't gonna just convince me. You get like 2 pages at some time only on these recommendations. I don't know if this isn't just gonna convince me that I really haven't done enough of a curation, or if I've done a very good amount of curation, and I have, because I am hovering over a lot of things that aren't on the wish list, and when I hover over those things, it does seem like they are mostly mixed reviewed, or they have the feeling at least of, this is weird, Toy Story 3, just totally in the wrong place there, under an anime game. But yeah, a lot of these games feel like they just were in early access before. Let's see, if I was to click adventure at this point, then under adventure it gives you cute games. Their system is messed up by far. I can definitely tell that much, because we are seeing you click adventure and then it says adventure under subcategory of cute games, which makes no sense.
Let's speed things up. I didn't stand a chance.
Okay. Restore 2 defense. 1 damage to enemy follower. Give +1/+1.
Too slow.
Hmm.
Best of luck to you.
And evolve
It won't be long now.
There's no time for you. Too slow.
and attack.
Never fear! Your hypersonic gal is here!
If anything, what this sale is, and I'm wasting a lot of time here, what this sale is highlighting for me is there are clearly some visual novels that I either ignored or really new because they're being highlighted here, and some of these just
An exemplary
don't
battle.
strike me. Although some of these might just be adult games too, and so that might be the end of it. And then they're using this second category of controller games, which, yeah, controller games in general I don't think like ideally I would want to play a lot of visual novels and such with controllers and have controller support. But boy, have they really dropped the ball on that Toy Story 3. Wow, I guess they're happy with the One Piece game. I thought people didn't like that. Was this my erotic stories? So that there are definitely some adult games also in this that they're catching people's attention. Yeah, I definitely would want to play games with a controller, even if it is something as simple as a visual novel. It probably doesn't matter that much. Yeah, and then, but then you click casual and puzzle, and then you're back to cute games as a category, and then romance games. And I assume this cute games subcategory under casual and puzzle is the same category also. Like, I would assume that's the case. I could be totally wrong. It does definitely make it difficult, though, to potentially shop when you just don't know whether something is being listed in the right place or not. This inevitably also highlights the problem of Steam having any kind of sale anyways, is that the constant daily sales are more than likely going to highlight these kinds of games way more, these smaller nicher games, than having a big sale, because nobody is going to really spend that amount of time to come down the levels here. This is tagged as a romance game. I think Angels of Death is ironically been tagged as a romance game. I don't think it really is what people would be thinking of. No, this is still mixed. This is the one that I think Game Grumps started to cover and then just stopped halfway through, so there must be some real adult content later on. And they just quietly dropped that. Pinball FX2 VR would be interesting. But yeah. More than likely, if I was really just shopping here, I would just go to my wish list, because we are still at like 80% similarity to things that are on my wish list, versus new things that are being shown to me. So yeah, I'd say maybe, particularly under these subcategories of anime games, that there might be 20% of games that I either decided not to follow for one reason or another because I was trying to be a better curator because there's just so many of them and not enough time, or I just missed them. Like this game, Songs of Wuha or Wusha, very possibly I missed that one. Whereas a lot of these others, I feel like I probably did see them, and excuse me. And after like digging deeper into it and looking, I probably had a very good reason not to put it on the wish list. But you can definitely also tell that there is kind of a massive amount of games that are on the wish list that haven't been bought. So my choice there as far as what, let's look at this one, see how reviewed it is. There's definitely a lot of stuff I have just not pulled the trigger on. Some of that definitely comes down to like YouTube family friendliness guidelines. Some of it also just comes down to how much I want, how much of this content I want. This one was glitching for a second and wouldn't open, oddly. There's also a case like Disgaea, where I played Disgaea 1 and rage quit it, and because I rage quit it, here we have Heroes, Might and Magic Clash of Heroes, and that's not really a anime game. So it's like, once again, that kind of in the wrong place. So Steam's not doing the best job as far as curating things.
You have no right to tread here. You'll never know that.
Let's see, and then we have co-op games, which if I was to really believe all these games were co-op games only, which is what I think of when I see something labeled as a co-op game, which is probably the wrong way of thinking about it, I would immediately ignore all those games and never buy them. But I know I'm wrong about that they're labeling games that have the option of co-op as co-op games, not just every game. I am starting to run into a lot of games that just don't want to load up the zoom in overlay, the hover overlay. Maybe that's a bit of slowdown on the case of my internet. So more and more I'm having trouble opening up tabs, but I'm also opening up a ridiculous amount of tabs. And see, there's still simulation games here, and pretty much I think like the Sakura series, even at $2.49, does kind of not make a lot of sense. Deal 2 damage. Let's go ahead and kill that. That and that. A lot of these games I think I'll just pretty much look at and talk about them without showing them, because totally a lot of these are also adult games, and very female focused on what's being highlighted here. There definitely is a split there, where very rarely do we get any guys, even on the thumbnails, let alone a otome game. So I kind of would make an argument that either there isn't enough otome games or young maiden games on Steam, or they are just not getting highlighted enough. And then you run into this weirdness where it's like, here we have Legacy of the Duelist, and then there's another thing here labeled Legacy of the Duelist, which This came out in 2016. This came out in 2020. So, how can you have two games named Legacy of the Duelist? That seems like just bad marketing. And Pinball FX under controller games. And then strategy games. Let's see. A lot of these are Disgaea games. Criminal Girls, mostly positive these days. Neptunia games. Super Dragon Ball Heroes, very positive these days. A lot of these games I feel like were not reviewed anywhere as well as they are now, too. So they took longer to grow a fandom than what I normally would have given a game time to grow a fandom with. And so there is potentially an argument here that I have eliminated a lot of games. And see, in this one under strategy you have just controller games being highlighted, and that's it. Like, then it just comes down here, and unless this is where you're supposed to be looking, which maybe you are supposed to be looking there, but that would be too much time. And then here we have like Puzzle Quest also being highlighted as being on my wish list, even though it's not a visual novel game. So
It might be dry, but it's home. I owe those women a debt, you see. For the town's prosperity.
yeah, there might be something more to this if you dig deeper, for sure. But yeah, here we have one called Sweet F Cake. I haven't heard of that. But yeah, otome, like young maiden games, visual novels for teenage girls. Like, those are seemingly not getting highlighted. And so yeah, if I was the person at Valve, working at Valve, I'd say, hey, let's try to highlight these games, or let's try to have a sale and get more developers to publish those kinds of games in the West. Maybe it is an argument that those games in particular don't get localized, because we do, and there's just in general less of them anyways. But yeah, I think more otome games being highlighted would be interesting. And there's seemingly about 5 pages for visual novels, cute games, as it were. And this sale is pretty much doing the one thing that every sale should be able to do, which is it's making me reconsider older games. Of course, you do at some point start to have a different experience. Hustle Cat, I think, is a Western Vision novel, where you will eventually have all the games you want and have very little interest in old games. But at that point, I guess you just don't browse on the sales pages. There's a lot of Cat Girls, Fox Girls games, but they may be all from 1 or 2 of the same series. And then we're in the fantasy category, and under fantasy you start to see more and more adult games. I'm actually really surprised. Like, you have a game like Funbag Fantasy here. Seems like they have kind of fixed it so that only one screenshot gets shown, and they have made it specifically so that that one screenshot is not uncensored porn, which we had that problem before. So I would assume that Valve has fixed that and worked on that. Well, nope. Nope. Just found one called Manor of Mystic Courtesans, which is straight up porn. And when it is a bigger, high promoted game, they are showing more screenshots and videos. So, for instance, if we hover over Fault here, you do start to see video. So, yeah. So there's still some work that needs to happen here. But I would even on that aspect say they aren't doing such a terrible job. For as many of these game developers are trying to sneak things by, they're seemingly doing a decent job there.
Finish the job.
Woo-wee, look at all that water.
There we go. Then the next category under here is fun games, or funny games. That, I guess, big difference between that. Here we have a adult game around the butler guy, it looks like. And then, yeah, this game looks like something I haven't seen before. And then under that category in those two tabs, we have romance games under visual novel. Hatoful Boyfriend still kind of a top seller, I think, because the main game is free, and then the Holiday Star spinoff is cheap. And then we've got something called Flowers. Alright, let's do this. Good. Broke it. Broke it straight down.
The hunt has only begun.
Looks like you keep. Woo-wee, look at all that water.
What do we have here?
Yeah, I may very well just have a whole collection here of adult games. A lot of this also is just straight up
Best of luck to you.
the same games in different categories. And I suppose I should also say that they've done a decent job of not putting a lot of low effort adult games that would be tagged as visual novels. Hentai Crush is the only game I've seen listed so far, and I'm right here at the end. That's like everything else at least is advertising itself and looks like it's trying to advertise itself as an actual good game. Here we have another one called Adorable Crush, which is probably from the exact same developer. Right.
You have no right to tread here.
Alright, well, this,
Continue to believe.
and then this, and then this. That should win the game for me, pretty much.
Order takes flight for a peaceful tomorrow.
Perhaps I'm being a little too generous, but I personally do kind of feel like, particularly under the visual novel category, under the anime category, the orders of the level of organization under those categories have, in my opinion, been probably pretty awful.
There's no one else I'd rather lose to.
So the fact that you can have a sale here and highlight games,
Looks like
and
I won.
it actually feels like somebody has curated this somewhat, or the customer base themselves have curated it enough that we're not full of garbage games getting promoted to the top tier. It is a nice revelation, to say the least, because that has been my fear, certainly. And when you just look at games as they come out brand new, that are anime looking games, it is really just a huge mix and a huge mess. That is not to say, though, that if you were to start a Steam account today and you are a big old anime game fan, you're going to have a great time. There's still a decent
core won't
amount
escape
of
that easy.
time and curation that you're going to have to do. And you probably would want to start small in general and just go and pick like Steins Gate and Clannad and things like that if you want to play visual novels, things you've really heard of. And then on occasion have maybe some sales point you in some more direction, and over the course of 4 or 5 years of going through sales, reach a point where you know what you want and what you don't. The next category under it was LGBTQ plus games, which, yeah, you'll find a lot more of those types of games as visual novels than almost anything else. Although, in fairness, I think there is a decent chance also, like when I look at a game like Sakura Night here, I don't know if I believe that there really is an LGBTQ main theme more than there might just be one lesbian character that can be a lesbian, where if I was to look at this game Love Ribbon, that definitely is more of a focus clearly on two girls in love. So there's, your mileage may vary, certainly. And at a certain point, if that is the reason why you're buying a game, other than it just, instead of it just being reviewed well in general, you're gonna have to spoil yourself on the visual novel very badly to make sure it's the kind of LGBTQ game you want to play. Which is why I've been more than happy and with the just being open-minded about it, and if I play a game and I'm playing a female protagonist going after a girl, that's fine. A guy, that's fine. If I'm playing as a male protagonist going after a girl, that's fine. A guy, that's fine. Even something else is fine. Like, I'm kind of up for anything in my fantasies. Maybe at some point, if it was like super hardcore, and it was just not my bag, like, and I just didn't find it attractive, I'd be kind of upset. That is kind of the thing about Yuri and Yaoi in that anime style, is that they're all still going for a very cutesy anime style of the characters, so they all look pretty good regardless. Where if I was to say try and look at a live action porn with like Ron Jeremy in it, or a big fat ugly person, which Ron Jeremy is a little fat but not that bad. That's where I probably would not go through that. Which is to say, if there was like a full motion video game with nude scenes in it, I probably wouldn't find that particularly attractive, unless the person was attractive. but also at a certain point, I don't know that Valve would allow a game like that either. Because I think Valve does not want to become a video publisher of porn. They've pretty much completely eliminated and stopped any focus or new additions to their video the video section of their storefront. Yep. Some of these games that I brought up are on my wish list. They just weren't being labeled as being on my wish list. So like Necromundia Underhive Wars here is mixed, and that's why it's not on my wish list. It came out in September. It's a shame because the idea of kind of being like a wasp-like human, which is what it kind of looks like, is kind of interesting, and the yellow artistic design of the outfits and the kind of metal punk appearance of everything is interesting, but obviously it either plays terribly and it almost certainly has no online PvP at this point. Let's see.
You wanna play with me?
The hunt has only begun.
I'm happy I was born this way. I just gotta bring
Well,
stuff,
I don't
right?
think we'll get to any video game news at this rate. I've just painted myself into a corner quite a bit. Let's see. Buying the complete collection. Like the season pass for Cluedo is 50% off, but it's still $17.49. That would be something I would love somebody to gift me, but even at that price, that's asking quite too much. And see, that is in part why you can see the recent reviews here for Cluedo is mixed, is because while the default game may be 50% off for $5.99, that's literally one board. And then there's like a dozen others that are hidden behind the season pass. It is just a terrible Hasbro scam that Marmalade Game Studios allowing Hasbro to let them do.
Oh, are you in need of medicine?
Let's see, we've got this game called Omori, which came out a while ago and was on the following list, and this was a psychological horror with some RPG Maker looking stuff, and we can see my quality of service does need to be enabled because none of these images loaded, and I just opened this page. I guess this one needs to be moved over to the wish list though. I can't justify leaving it on the fall list. That will be probably one of those cases of games though where I also choose not to ever buy it.
It seems I've lost.
Like, can't really even do that at the moment. Let's see. Borderlands 3. If you're going to get the Super Deluxe Edition for 55% off, you can get it for $35, but you're still paying $50 for the Ultimate Edition, which includes Season Pass 2 and Gold Weapon Skin Pack. So it's like $50 now for a slightly old game. If anything, like now that Embracer Group has bought Gearbox, maybe there is a better argument for buying this now, but I wouldn't get too deep into that. Buy it if you want to buy it. $50 for the Ultimate Edition is not a terrible price. It's just not a great price either.
I shall give birth to a new world.
By your will, O Lord. I owe those women a debt, you see.
See, we can't evolve this one. We could evolve that one. It's not going to really save us much. So yeah, It's still a hard sell, certainly. Also considering how I haven't played Borderlands the pre-sequel yet, so that there's still that game in the middle of all of that.
There you are, my little trespasser.
I think I might actually survive this. So here's the point shop for sale, so you can claim a free sticker. Grab a sticker every day, get my sticker or whatever. And then you can use it in chat. You can see that the non-cash refundable, no actual cash value points, I'm up to like 23,000. Now you could get item bundles. So if I wanted some of these things that you would have gotten for free from crafting badges in the past, now you can just straight up buy them. You might still be able to get them, but all these little items never should have had any value anyways. And if you want anything fancy, you're spending about 3,000 on them, and none of them really matter at all. I don't think anything that specifically is limited to the points shop that you can't get on the store, but clearly they're trying to move people away from using the store. And then you have these like one-time message emotes that they're trying to get into microtransactions, and that's really stupid. Let's see specifically what we have. Item bundles. You have a discount in the no cash value bundle here. Would there be anything worthwhile getting? No. Like, I love Portal, and I still would not get that Portal 2 bundle, not for a second. So I'm gonna probably just have this ever-increasing points value that is just never used. That would be my guess as to how this goes.
You wanna play with me? No right to tread here.
See.
It seems like lost. It seems like lost. I won't let you get away.
I'm happy I was born this way.
Oh, I just lost because it took too long.
Nice marksmanship.
There's a points history, and clicking on it, it seems like... What have I redeemed? I got badges, and we're not even seeing any badge levels for the sale. So, yeah. I've redeemed 11,000 points. I'm at like 23,000 points right now. And all 11,000 of those points were to get badge levels. So next time there is a big sale, a big like fall sale or summer sale, there might be a badge that I spend all the points on just to waste them. I do own Dragon Ball FighterZ. I hope I own the FighterZ pass, but I wouldn't be surprised if I don't. Yeah. So I could spend $9 to get the FighterZ pass, but even the FighterZ pass right now is actually mostly negative. So, yeah. And that's FighterZ Pass 3, which I suppose FighterZ Pass 2 would also have to be on the wish list. I might literally have the Ultimate Edition though of the game, so if that was the case, then I'm missing things though. Because yeah, we can see that there are more little microtransactions all over the place. So yeah, I do have Fighter Z Pass 1, but I don't have the Pass 2, I don't have the Pass 3, and you can see that there is just $130 worth of somewhat redundant, so you really wouldn't need to buy all of it, but there is like $25 or $40 worth of DLC if you buy the 3 passes. So by all means, buy the Ultimate Edition if you are going to buy Dragon Ball FighterZ. And you also kind of need to hope that that is just the only Dragon Ball fighting game you ever are going to buy. Here we have a game that I pulled up called Phantom Breakers Battlegrounds, which looks like it's a chibi beat 'em up game, which I can't look at any of these things because none of the images are gonna load up. See, at this point, $2.99 looks fine, but the complete pack itself seems to be $9.79. Let's see, what's weird here is I can definitely see I have a character pack on the wish list, but then I have a game here that's not on the wish list. So I think I'd put this on the wish list, but I would have to be very careful not to accidentally buy this. It does kind of feel a lot like the Simpsons arcade game, where you just beat up a bunch of people through many different areas, which I could kind of get into that. It's not going to be as interesting, I imagine, as the Simpsons game, but then when you look at this like complete bundle, there's DLC, costume DLC, and background music DLC, and soundtracks all being bundled together as DLC. So there's some research for sure I'd have to do. Then we have one here called Garu, Mark of the Wolves, which looks like it's a older fighting game. Which I guess if I am going to get into fighting games at any point, playing an older fighting games. Apparently this is a Fatal Fury series game. $4.99 discounted from SNK. Honestly, it feels like it's literally just two guys that fight each other and that's it. Well, no, I see a girl and some other characters. Definitely feels old. So putting something like that on the wish list is probably fairly safe in the sense that I probably would never play it, purchase it anyways.
Is it edible? Only one way to find out.
Of course, the danger here is I'll build up my entire wish list, and then I'll feel the need to do a wish list cleanup, which honestly I kind of at the moment don't feel like I would ever really need to do a wish list cleanup, as long as I do a decent job of not putting too much on it. Here we have a game called Donpachi Resurrection, which I feel like I've heard that name before. It's a shoot 'em up bullet hell game with some kind of side art of anime girls and perhaps some story around
I'll
that.
face you head on.
$10.49 English Japanese. Yeah, I think I can't say yes to that. Like I'm still miles away from the idea that I would ever want to play a shoot 'em up game. I'm much closer to many other categories of games. Schoolgirls Zombie Hunters is still mixed reviewed. I'm willing to put this on the fall list because it's on save again, but like this Oni-chanbara spin-off game has kind of failed for the Oni-chanbara series in general, which I wish they could get that series to work particularly well, but like we can kind of see it's not. So like Oni-chanbara origin here is is mixed reviewed also. So I just feel like D3 Publishing in general must not have gotten a good grasp on making PC versions of their games. So I'm kind of in this holding pattern of I'll buy it later, or I'll buy the remaster, or I'll buy the HD re-release. Like, the only one that is even slightly popular on Steam is Onichanbara Z2 Chaos, which is like the latest game probably in the series. And honestly, I'm not sure that the people that would work on Onichanbara even exist anymore, or if they have just moved on to something else, or if they've simply been beaten down by censorship that they wouldn't want to make. They just wouldn't want to make any more games in that series. Next we have Moho Arms, which this is early access, so that's easy enough to realize why that's still on the fall list. See, next we have a bullet hell game called Epido, E-P-I-D-O, Epido. It's a widescreen shoot 'em up game with probably asset flip, anime angels and monsters that just seem to be on the side of the screen. It's rated very positively, so for an adult content game, if you want adult content and shoot 'em up, EPIDO, looks like it might be a decent offering.
Let's speed things up.
No, let's go ahead and kill this.
What do we have here? Should have been quicker.
But I guess for a game like that is so on the nose, it's such an adult game that I couldn't ever really cover it. I would really have to be scraping the bottom of the barrel, as it were. Then we have one called Monobino Happy End Deluxe, which isn't tagged with adult content. There's definitely specific art. I think this might be the visual novel. If it's the one I'm thinking of, it feels like it is. Visual novel where you're kind of raising little girls, but then some of the little girl imagery does kind of seem slightly revealing. I'm frankly a little shocked here that this has been left since 2019 on Steam, because this does feel like it's right in the category of those kinds of games where they would say, well, there's a little girl in it, and thus we're gonna eliminate it just because we don't like young looking anime girls, even if they're not actually being depicted in sexual situations. She does have like a ring on her finger, but yeah, like a two-piece bikini on a little girl, I would have thought that would have been enough to trigger the censorship rules on Valve, but it hasn't, oddly. Interesting. Of course, then this also doesn't support English, so maybe that's the case. Maybe only the English language games are getting censored so much, particularly if it's an older or relatively older adult looking game. Let's see. Just going to be very, very long amount of time. So what I need to do is check how many of these I clicked on didn't support English, because I bet that is a significant amount of them.
There's a battle underway.
Yeah. Yeah, this game straight up has nudity in the screenshots. Yeah, I think I am getting now why some of those outliers that look like I wouldn't have had them on the follow list weren't on the follow list. It's probably because they were just straight up adult games, which that might have been the reason, or it might be because they didn't support the English language, which that would be very much a reason. So I wanted to check here, like, not Danganronpa version 3 or volume 3. What I wanted to see is if they have Danganronpa volume 1 and 2 reload, because if that's the case, I'm going to be fairly upset that I'm playing Danganronpa 1. Ultra Despair Girls is a spin-off game. Danganronpa 2, Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc. So yeah, Reload is not listed as a game on Steam, so I am suited. Reload must be a console exclusive. I wouldn't be surprised if there actually is not much of a difference. It would be interesting if they were to do a full-on reboot of the Danganronpa series, because I do think there's some modern sentimentality you could do into it to speed that up and make it a better experience. But yeah. But yeah, I don't think they're going to do that on PC. Here we have a otome game called Hayoki Ito Blossoms. It's rated very positively. It's on sale right now for 69 cents. And seems like there's 2 games in this series. So I'm going to click over on this one and see it's very positive. I want to put this on the follow list specifically because it's an otome visual novel. If I am going to cover visual novels, I'm going to very quickly want to cover one that is for young girls and have some beefcake with the massive amount of cheesecake you're going to end up getting covering visual novels. And I want to try and keep it as balanced as possible.
Wait, not yet. Let's play.
Let's see. One Piece World Seeker. Deluxe edition, $22.49 with some censorship. Let's see, if you were to buy the pre-ordered DLC bundle and extra episodes, it seems like you've got like $15 extra for the episodic pass, and the pre-order DLC bundles another $2 if you want to see that. I don't know if this any song pack is important, so one would hope the deluxe edition at $22.49 included all of that. I felt like this game was not liked when it first came out, so they must have fixed it. Now, at a certain point, it almost, we are oddly, like, I would have been surprised if somebody ever told me I was going to end up saying this, but we are hitting a level where One Piece is starting to become irrelevant, because One Piece is probably closer to being ended than you would think for such an incredibly long manga, and it was definitely outsold all of last year with with the by Demon Slayer. In One Piece runs on Shonen Jump, and so did Demon Slayer. But Demon Slayer, I guess, is also ending, so it might be less of a concern now. Here we have VR Kanoji, Joe. What I think is interesting to point out here is that for a VR game that's $30, that's pretty expensive. There was adult content with a dev patch now available, and I imagine that wasn't this commentary from Cut Content Police Curator hadn't had that information when I first looked at this game. So yeah, I guess if you want a VR adult game, which that I recall vividly saying there's literally no reason why you would want to play a VR game where you're hanging out with a Asian schoolgirl if there isn't adult content in it. And so I was very confused as to why that was even an option on the table. Okay. 2 damage there. And then in this. And then do that.
I lowballed
But
you.
yeah, I don't think there's a real reason to own that game. Then here's another game that just has straight up nudity on the screenshots. Some of these games do sell so cheaply that it's no surprise that they sell pretty well. Like this game, Steamy Sextet, is $2.24. So yeah, it doesn't even have to be that good.
One step closer to victory.
We are kind of in a weird position right now where the adult games on Steam are of a pretty high quality. So a race to the cheapest content possible has yet to be initiated. Where if you think about, say, most websites like Pornhub, I imagine the content on there, well, I don't have to imagine, I've seen Pornhub. Most of that content is awful. If you sort by newest content, it's just not something you would want to waste your time looking at, let alone even paying a small amount of money for.
Darn it! I won't lose next time.
Hey, let's play.
Okay. They have Crows of Thorns. Let's see. Next we have a game called Riddle Joker, which looks like a romance visual novel. It's $31.49, so it must be pretty good. Japanese full audio. It's overwhelmingly positive. I guess I add it to the wishlist. Like, and I'm gonna have to have a come to Jesus moment at some point, as it were, which that's a weird phrase to use in this instance, but I am gonna have to decide how many visual novels I really am gonna end up buying, or, you know, what might very well happen is that 5-10 years from now I may simply just have a significant amount I may just have a significant amount of visual novels and nothing else of interest. Alright, so this would do 3 damage, but we kind of have to do it. There. And then 1, 2, 3.
Still got far to go.
And then 1, 2.
Best of luck to you.
So this is my end.
See.
All I
Do
need is an
this.
opening and you're toast.
Evolve.
It won't be long now.
And then
Sorry, but the time for games is over.
go ahead and play that. in the turn. Let's see, next we have a game here called A Sky Full of Stars, which is $5.93 as a visual novel.
To get strong. Stronger than I am now.
This is our
Yep.
last push.
I'd say the animation style here is a little undetailed, a little soft, not terrible. Japanese full audio, rated very positively. Does support English. Right, well, they killed all my fun characters.
There you are, my little trespasser. What an oath.
Darn it! I won't lose next time.
Hey, let's play. This ends here. So fun. Yeah.
One helping of this
Still
is
got far to
plenty not
go.
for you.
Let's see. Next we have a game called Food Girls. Yeah, this kind of is almost like the perfect day to also go through a bunch of old anime games in general. It doesn't fully seem like it's in English, but it says it is. 1519. Some of it's been censored a little bit to get rid of the lolly character. Yeah, Japanese full audio. Still very positive, so I guess it goes on the wish list. Like, the only thing is we're gonna find out that some bit of news happened and that I don't remember. G4 has announced 4 of its actors, and 2 of them I don't recognize at all, so we'll probably get to that story at some point. But then 2 of them are Adam Sessler and Kevin Pereira, which you pretty much had to have Adam Sessler and Kevin Pereira at minimum, because otherwise you just not have any connective tissue to the previous G4 and it would just feel like all new people. But I also wouldn't be surprised one bit if Kevin Pereira and Adam Sessler kind of retire fairly quickly after a year, maybe 2. Because I definitely am not expecting them to stick around as they just get older and older. See, this game on Steam, Otaku's Fantasy, is clearly just a sex game, and it's 59 cents, and this is one that I think I can say no to and not put on the wish list, because it is very positive because it's very cheap. And as a critic in general, there's kind of very little reason to criticize something that is super cheap. It would be like being a critic, a food critic that only reviews fast food, which there are some people on YouTube certainly that have done that and made a lot of hay out of that, but honestly, you get a better result in return if you're criticizing quality food that people actually have to pay for. If anything, I would say, yeah, the food criticism category on YouTube really is doing the same thing that I kind of have done in the past or even kind of do now on my channel, which is make a lot of medium to low quality content versus focusing on really, really good content. Because if you were going to be a food critic, if I was going to be a food critic on YouTube, I would want to be able to make enough money to go to restaurants like once a week minimum and spend $100 on a meal, and not $100 to get 100 hamburgers at like McDonald's or something like that, where it becomes just a numbers game. And yeah, you don't really see a lot of that.
What do we have here?
Oh, come on!
Probably because you can't monetize it well. Next, we have a game here on Steam called Blood Code, which is it's tagged as an otome visual novel. It seems like you're playing as some kind of witch in training. Actually, it looks like it's more of a game than just a visual novel, anyways. And I kind of love how they haven't wasted any space here. So they've just put the auto and the skip and the forward skip and the save and the load and the log and the home button all on screen immediately, where that would be empty. I kind of would maybe want to be able to click a button here and collapse it and then expand it later on, so it's just not covering up the screen all the time. But there really is no reason to hide things behind menus, particularly in a visual novel case. This is full audio Chinese. Interesting. Well, a Chinese otome visual novel is definitely a different beast. Alright.
Embrace your vast potential. What do we have here?
Ow!
Opportunities abound.
Let's see. Next we have one called Maitetsu. Seems to be a visual novel about a train conductor anime moe girl. $8.99, Japanese full audio, very positive. Like, at a certain level, I'm not even accounting for my own taste in these visual novels. I'm accounting for the taste of others and just letting mob rule and popular vote push me towards visual novels.
I'm going on ahead.
I guess in this case, Pinball FX VR2, I guess it goes on the fall list since it's a VR game. It's very positive. Pinball FX 3 already exists. It kind of sucks that you would have to spend, at the moment, $18.54 to get VR game pinballs. If anything, I think there might be something really interesting around the idea of playing VR, playing pinball in VR. At least you can move around your face and your eyes and have better camera control at that point. I don't think the sharks floating around is an interesting idea, though. I think this probably highlights, in particular, the problem with the mentality of Pinball FX games in general, is that they want to put garbage on the side and make their own games, versus focusing in on just making good VR game, good pinball games. But they're also up to Pinball FX 3, so one would assume that there's a Pinball FX VR 3, and honestly, it probably should be a case of
You leave a lot to be desired.
it probably should be a case where you get the VR version of the game anyways on top of buying Pinball FX. Let's see. Here we have a Toho game, so it's a shoot 'em up bullet hell shooter on sale. It's a little surprising to see any of those on sale. 20% off might be the best discount you're ever going to get, since it's such a niche series. And frankly, if you are big into the Toho games, you probably are buying all of them. I don't know how long some of these bullet hell shoot 'em up games really are, too. Like, in an arcade where you're dying and having to put more quarters into it, it might take an hour or two to beat the whole game, but without that speed bump of having to actually pay more money, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these shoot 'em up games take less than an hour and a half to beat, or and then there's just probably motivators to go and play the game multiple times and try and get better scores. Next we have Eternal Radiance. So it's on the fall list at $16.99 English, Japanese, and Chinese. It's rated positively now, so this is something that would have made it to the wish list as a fall up cleanup, falling list cleanup anyways. Yeah, it looks like a fine RPG game. Something that could easily be forgotten about if I just kept going down the path of well, is this something I want to do right now? No. Yeah, if I start playing things like Ni no Kuni, Eternal Radiance may get replaced there. Things also like the Dragon Quest series. And here next is a game called Killing Time, which is very positive, but it's just an adult game that actually probably isn't that good at all, but it's selling discounted at 59 cents right now, so no surprise there. Same can be said, I imagine, for the game The Heiress, where, yeah, both of these games look like RPG Maker games with adult content, which there's just a new one of those every couple days gets released. Next we have Songs of Wuxia. I assume that's how you pronounce that.
Spare the innocent.
Looks to me like a Chinese game with enough polish as like a Chinese RPG. Unfortunately, English is not supported. It's $4.89. That's a shame. This is something I would much prefer to see localized on Steam than half of the terrible Chinese games that do get localized. Next we have Azure Ring, Virgin, and Slave Phylacteries, which is mixed reviewed, and it looks like it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up game with just a lot of adult content added to make it seem like it's a good enough game to play, but at mixed reviewed and selling for $9.79, that still is not gonna pass the muster. Give +2.
Why, you've got the face of a chameleon.
Okay. We evolve.
This match is mine. I love how you slither. What a squishy body
By
you
your
have.
will, oh Lord.
That. Darn it. I thought I had an Earthright I could have done. Why did that not work? Oh, it needs 2 Earthrights. Well, that's why. Okay. Let's see. Fantasia of the Wind is another game that doesn't support English, so that explains that. Might Magic Clash of Heroes. Well, here, if I was to buy the Might Magic Heroes bundle, I could get 7 Deluxe and 5 to complete my collection for $7.98, or I could go for the Cappy bundle to get for $34, which that's not really a good deal. I do have the DLC, I Am the Boss. I hope I covered that, but I'm not sure if I did. So that was my main concern. Getting other Might Magic games, though, would be a questionable decision. They would take a lot of time, even longer than visual novels, and it would be hard to put that much commitment into it, particularly since Might Magic 3 Gold is about the only one that I have anything to really say about it. about the whole thing.
No one's getting
Alright.
You don't stand a chance.
Well, if I'm gonna survive here, we need to hit this.
I need more cuddles.
See, we have one called Visteria Saga War of the Scions, which looks like it's a RPG game. Fairly old looking RPG game. Yeah, I'd have a hard time justifying this. $13.99 is also very expensive, English and Chinese. It is a game that sounds like it's a part of a long-running series, but I also question the reality of that. Or it may simply be a case of it being named that way to trick people. Let's see, we have got a game here called Dungeon Munchies, which looks like a fairly fast-paced side-scroller hack and slash game. It's early access still, English and Chinese, but it's overwhelmingly positive. There's one thing that I hope is still the case, that the reviews on Steam are legitimate reviews, whereas many other stores fronts have been just astroturfed completely, and they're just full of fake reviews. Sakura Beach is discounted to $2.49. The whole Winged Cloud Sakura series, I think it runs an interesting middle ground, the Sakura series and Winged Cloud games in general. They're very positive, I think, in part because they're not normally sold for $10, so $2.50 isn't asking that much. They seem to give you a decent amount of nudity, but probably not that much. If anything, I would think of the series of adult games on Steam, the Sakura series might be perfect for the 18-year-old getting into porn games more than a hardcore like 30 or 40-year-old who's looking for a lot more content and a lot more depictions. I bet that's a weird way of phrasing it, but yeah, I would almost certainly guess that the Sakura series is very softcore, and it's just going to be normal girls with big boobs, and that's it. There may not even be any actual lower genitalia ever shown. I often feel like I'm opening up a dangerous to myself saying this, but like there is that kind of like tradition porn, and I'd say like most parents probably wouldn't care if a horny 16-year-old, even maybe a horny 14-year-old played a game like Sakura, but definitely some parents would care, and that really should be a decision up to the parents. But yeah, there is definitely some softcore stuff out there, and you know, older people sometimes like that too, to each their own. Not everybody is into the most extreme, like BDSM content you can possibly find with characters that are vampires and such, where there is quite a lot of that available in video game form. I would say most of the games on Steam don't go extremely extreme. There's definitely other stuff that is just like straight up scatological and straight up just like doesn't even try to sell itself on a more mainstream storefront. And then you kind of have almost the same situation, but I'd almost argue that the Sakura game and some of the other companies that make games like this tend to go a little bit more extreme here. Notice here in these screenshots you're seeing multiple people in the screenshot, and you're getting like upskirt shots. So there is much more of an implication that you would see more adult content in a game like this, even though this one isn't even tagged as having nudity. This is like 79 cents, so it's cheap. English, Chinese, full audio, which that's an interesting question too, is that if it is a Chinese game, maybe that's why it has no nudity in it, and there is more implication. Like, this is definitely an indication that they're about to have sex in this screenshot, and maybe someone is forcing sex on the girl. You don't even know. That there definitely has been an argument in the past that the reason why a lot of the Japanese content, a lot of the Japanese and adult content is the way it is because of the restrictive nature of censorship in Japan. And if they simply did not force all adult content to be censored in Japan, that wouldn't create the urge to go, it wouldn't create an urge or an itch that's just not being scratched, and thus then a lot of Japanese adult content gets more extreme because they can't show the more normal, natural elements, so it has to find something to compensate. And that's why you see a lot of shibari, bondage type stuff in like Japanese content, or at least that's the theory. Who knows for real if that's the case.
There goes the workshop.
And then you have like Adorable Crush, which they're calling it a virtual reality MMO, but really it's just a honeypop clone by the looks of it. And I don't really see a reason why I would want to play a honeypop clone. I could just play honeypop 2. It is mostly positive, mostly because it's $1.19. So
Watch closely, apprentices.
Whoa, you're strong.
there we go. See. Well, we got 3 victories, so I think
That should do it.
we're now just looking for one more victory, maybe. I got really lucky there. I'm not even gonna claim that there's any logic. Yeah, we need 2 more Forcecraft or Swordcraft victories, then we'd be done for the day. As far as that. See, next we have Goku Love 100 Days for $5.99 discounted. English, Chinese, rated very positively. Goes to the fall list, I guess.
My quarry won't escape that easy.
At a certain point, yeah, I am setting myself up to have to do a fall list. A wish list cleanup, because this is going to boil down to, we're going to have visual novels from like Korea, and visual novels maybe even from India, and just all of Asia, and spreading out around the edges of Asia. We're going to just start to see more and more visual novels, and as a general category, I'm going to have to start curating this. See, I don't know if this is supposed to be an otome game or what. It's not really tagged as anything. It's early access and English is not supported, so that makes it very easy to ignore. I guess that's why I ignored it before. Let's see, then we had the Legacy of the Duelist game here for $7.99. Why would you want the older game? How in the world are they being allowed to name the 2 games the exact same price, the exact same name, If anything, I'd say this feels like it is more traditional Yu-Gi-Oh, which interests me. I wouldn't really want to spend all this money on it. Let's see. $33.83 to get a whole bunch of things. This really is one of those cases where I wouldn't mind owning this game, but I also wouldn't really want to spend any money on it, and it's at its lowest price already. I guess the new one is called Duel Links that they're promoting. So maybe it was just a mistake. Legacy of the Duelist. Legacy of the Duelist Link Edition. Ah. Oh, I see. So this is kind of tricky. Then. So I'm going to put this on the ignore list, I think. Because this seems like the Link Evolution is a upgraded version of that game. Plus, there's no DLC on it. So yeah, Konami is just being Konami, which means they're being the worst, to steal Jim Sterling's catchphrase. So they're just screwing people over by selling the same thing, or selling the older version of games when they shouldn't. They should have removed it from sale if they wanted to treat the customers well. Here we have one called Sweet F Cake, which is just horribly drawn. I kind of get the idea of maybe drawing chubby girls, because maybe that's your thing, and I would like that, but the whole animation style itself just seems pretty bad. Like when you start to get to these stationary images, there's just not a lot of detail on these characters. And this guy is not a good protagonist looking character, and this guy should not be in a game like this, and this guy is just like hugely overweight. It's just like, I know most anime characters are underweight by far and unrealistic, but to swing so far in that direction would require a lot of love and focus on the animation that I just don't feel like that there's there. And then they have the main game for $5.97, and then they have a Man's Club edition for $10.18, and then a Boys Club edition for $8.36. And I don't know what the I don't even know what the Man's Club DLC actually is, but I think you probably are getting ripped off if you were to buy it.
Woo-wee, look at all that water.
Then next we have Runaway Demon Bride, which is all full-on adult content with screenshots that are just full nudity. Although, in all fairness, I think it is worth mentioning, sometimes when I say full nudity, I mean that the top parts are uncensored while the bottom parts are censored. Not guaranteed that always the case, but once again, if it is a Japanese game, that is pretty much how they would make them. So you have to hit this. And what does this do? This.
What do we
have
And
here?
that.
Anyone call for a
There
super
never
sleuth?
was a mystery?
Runaway Demon Pride is $7.49 with Japanese full audio, and yeah, it's frankly just too much of an adult game. Like there really is nothing here other than an adult visual novel, and those kinds of games I think can't make it to the wish list. That's asking too much at that point. As long as I'm streaming on YouTube. If I was putting the content on some other service, maybe we could reevaluate that thought and we could just do full-on porn games, but there needs to be a little bit more artistic value there.
You're done for.
Next we have like Kara Kara 2,
Case closed.
which is tagged as a visual novel with like fox girls, with sexual content here. So got little fox girls, $4.99 Japanese only, but then you have to pay $4.99 at the moment, half off, for to uncensor it. Which that actually might work fairly well, although at a certain point it also is questionable.
So there never was a mystery?
Anyone call for a super sleuth?
Whoa. So there never was a mystery?
Yeah, this is a Sekai project game, and there's I guess a question
How's that sound?
around that idea too, as to do I want to play a game that just has all of the adult content cut out? Is there an actual game visual novel wise there? It confuses the reviews quite a bit at that point, because I don't know if there is a romance or a story there, or if the game is just reviewed very positively because of the extra adult content, which I would not get, so I could play it on YouTube. But then we might very well just have a kind of pointless visual novel there. Okay. How are we gonna do this? I think we do this.
Dry, but it's home. For the town, prosperity.
Juice.
And then
The path ahead is
this.
overgrown.
For the town's prosperity.
And then evolve.
The hunt has only begun.
You can still turn back. Gotta carve a way through.
Hit that.
No way.
Home sweet home. There's sand in my eyes.
Let's see. Next we have Love Spell Written in the Stars, which is another otome visual novel, which is rated very positively. It's discounted only at $15.19, which is too expensive, but ignoring prices, since I don't use that as a category ever, this is another otome. They can build up that collection of otome games. 5 defense to your leader. Destroy 1 in play.
I shall give birth to a new world. The world
There we
cycles
go.
on.
And then play that.
You have no right to tread here.
Then next we have like Sakura Swim Club, which is $3.49 on sale right now, which is another Winged Cloud Sakura game,
Anyone call for a
which
super
is
sleuth?
it's basically the same idea. It's just characters, very soft core, big boobed anime girls. I mean, I don't even have to hide it. I can just show it. It's just big boobed anime girls in the school swimsuits and maybe some other costumes. Then I'm not really expecting too much from a game like that. It is rated very positively, but also I again don't know what I'd really be doing with that content. Let's see, do this.
You wanna play with me?
And then this.
Let's play! Oh, waffle cakes!
And then what else? We played this
I
one,
owe those women a debt.
and
you
then
see.
we evolved this one,
I won't let you get away.
Break the law.
and then we
You went
attack with
straight
this
to it,
one.
eh?
Best of luck to you.
This here ranch
Play
will
that.
never
And
know
that.
that. Come on!
I shall give birth to a new world.
Next one is another game without
Broken already?
any that doesn't support English, so that makes sense. And then another one that doesn't support English, so that makes sense. And so I'm not even gonna bother mentioning them.
It looks like I'm up.
And then here we have, let's see. You have one here called Love Sweet Garnish, which is tagged as having sexual content again. Younger looking characters, Moe, going with that Moe art style, certainly. $9.09, Japanese full audio. But then again, you have to pay for the adult unlock content, so I think that kind of works. It's a Sekai Project game. I'm surprised I lost there. I thought I was gonna win. There definitely, this would be like another choice that parents would kind of hope that they could choose for their kids there, but maybe not. But choose is the wrong word there. Like there is an argument here. If you see something super
My quarry won't
cutesy
escape
here,
tonight.
like Love Sweets Garnish
guess
and
you're
this
looking for a
anime
fight.
art style, I think you probably would be maybe a little bit more or less upset if a kid was playing this, like a horny 17-year-old was playing this, than if they were looking at, say, a Hustler magazine, which I guess pro-censorship activist and at one time, if not always, the owner of Hustler died, Larry Flint. He died a couple days ago, but he was pretty old, so no big surprise there. But then on the other hand, you might actually be a little bit concerned about a kid playing one of these games, because you don't want them to turn into a person who is only interested in anime girls and not interested in real world girls. If it is your hopes and desires that they find someone in the real world to be their romantic partner. But everything in balance, I imagine, is the real answer there. It's just a little bit of everything is okay. Too much of everything is not. And I am actually making some progress here because this is telling me something as far as which games have paid DLC that I can afford to not buy, and maybe even save myself some money by doing that, and then I could still cover the content if it's worth covering. But that is also taking me very far away from the thought that I had where I was only going to play like the top 10 visual novels. Like, but that I'm getting very, very far from that idea at this point. And yeah, I guess today is a bad day to watch my stream if you're not interested in the anime games in general. But actually, I would say right now is the best point whatsoever to cover anime games as the Chinese New Year or Asian New Year. It's called Chinese New Year, but I think probably they just call it Lunar New Year in a lot of other countries. So that is thematically somewhat accurate. In fact, I'm surprised it wasn't the whole focus. But then also Asian countries make other things than just anime games. They definitely make other kinds of games too, and they should be highlighted also.
You have no right to tread here.
See, next we have Trap Shrine, which Trap is a cross-dresser intentionally trying to trick somebody. At least that's my understanding of it. And LGBTQ, or particularly the T of the LGBTQ, kind of hate the phrase trap being used in general. $3.99 Japanese Polonio. It's overwhelmingly positive though, so yeah, I guess I kind of have to put it on the wish list. We don't particularly have a lot of trap content in general. Let's see.
Son of a gun, ain't you?
Next game I have is just full up nudity on the screenshots. It's called Elf Breeding Farm, and it's mixed reviewed, and it's discounted to $8.39. And yeah, I can see why it would have a visual appeal, but it must play particularly bad as a visual novel. And it must have very, very low amounts of images. Let's see. The next game is Funbag Fantasy 2, which is another game that has straight up nudity on the screenshot. So actually quite a few of them did. It's just that the main pages managed to hide that fairly well. And that's interesting. Also, totally worth mentioning that I have the adult thing toggled in my preferences, so many of these games are have a gray bar that says this game is marked adult only. You're only seeing this because of your preferences. Next we have a game called Hot and Steamy Nights, which again, nudity in the screenshots, mixed reviewed, selling for $8.39. Then we have Faulty Apprentice Fantasy Dating Sim, which has a lot of video. It's rated very positively. It's $15.99 English Polonio. These adult games, not particularly cheap by any means. It's tagged as a fantasy dating sim game. I kind of question the art though. Like, this doesn't look particularly great. I could almost see this as an art style, but it's a little too dark, and maybe it needs some more shading, or maybe it needs a better color palette, like white hair going into blonde hair with the kind of yellowish and green background. Seems like it's asking a lot. And looking at some of these other characters, here you have someone that is just drawn very, very poorly, anatomically speaking.
It might be dry.
didn't need to play that. I could have played this. Well,
I owe
regardless.
those women a debt, you see.
Probably would have played both anyways. Yeah, the actual gameplay here does not look like it would make up for the bad graphics for Faulty Apprentice. It's
Your defeat
also
was
very,
foretold.
very expensive. It also has,
Come in every
well,
shade
free
imaginable.
uncensored content DLC and 2 other free pieces of DLC, but yeah, I just don't like that art style, so no to that. Let's see. I'm basically checking each game to make sure it's YouTube family friendly, and hopefully I've done a decent job of that. Although, you know what, I also have been able to push it quite far and nobody has flagged my videos or complained, which thank goodness for that. Please don't. So here we have Marco and the Galaxy Dragon. Now, I don't think this one is even tagged as having any adult content. It looks like there might be some lewd scenes, and that's about it. Maybe some lewd outfits. It has kind of a weird intro animation too that you just wouldn't really expect. This is already on my wish list though, at $11.99 Japanese full audio, 40% off. You certainly are going to run into a scenario where a lot of these games are only going to be slightly discounted, and so you run into that problem of paying quite the premium, which there are longer, better games out there probably than visual novels that would attract most people. Here we have the Min of Yoshiwara Kyokuya, which is another otome visual novel. A lot of otome visual novels have the men set in a fantasy world or in more ancient Japan. There's a whole bundle here. This is $9.89, English, Japanese, Chinese. No voice acting though. It's a whole bundle here I could get for 71% off. But yeah, I'm trying to, I think that is a decent move, is to grow the otome collection on the wish list.
See you around, slick.
Look at all that water.
Are you some sort of imbecile?
You have no right to tread here.
Right. So at this point, while I do have a decent amount of games that are still anime games to look at, I've opened up enough tabs to get back to the tabs I had opened before I looked at the whole sale. So let's take a break, since it's also been 2 hours and 40 minutes, and let's see if we can get the video game news. If that means that we kind of wrap everything up and I still have some games to look at from the sale, that's fine. They're old games. It's not like I'm telling you any real news either. I'm simply looking at old games. So yeah, I think we'll do that. We'll do one more game here. We have one that's tagged with sexual content and nudity called the Our End of the World. And what's interesting about this one is you've literally kidnapped this girl, according to the images and the trailer. And it's $5.99, and it's Chinese full audio. So yeah, you've like literally kidnapped and chained up this girl, and then you're gonna convince her to potentially stay. Real like dark fantasy fulfillment there. So after that, time for something completely different, or frankly quite past the time for something completely different.
No right to tread here. You have no right to tread here.
Let's see.
The hunt has only begun.
You think you're strong enough? Away with you! Whoa, bud, cut the rough stuff.
I
There
owe
we
those
go.
women a debt, you see.
So we have Open Critics review of Little Nightmares 2. Oh man, I lost the whitelist on this, so I can't scroll down. Darn it. Well,
Your defeat was foretold.
I don't even think it's a review. I think it's just the launch announcement for Little Nightmares 2, so just take that. They've also the HBO Last of Us
I serve in hopes of a better tomorrow.
TV series has now hired someone to play Joel. I can't zoom down to figure out who it is.
Won't be long now.
So,
always catch the varmints.
man,
Eventually.
that's so ridiculous that the minimal spacebar screws up that one website now. Doesn't screw up any other websites.
Severed my vines.
Gamatsu has an article here. 505 Games is going to publish EU Den Chronicle 100 Heroes, which, do we have a bit of a video here to look at? Today, Fridays are not particularly the slowest days. Yeah, I think I've saw the announcement for this game, and that's pretty much as far as we've gotten. This was like a Kickstarter game. So now it's got a publisher, which probably means it will get more funding. And they were former Konami developers, which that probably means something
It might be
too.
dry, but it's home.
You have no right to tread here.
For the town's
Son of
prosperity.
a gun,
There we
ain't
go.
ya?
This ain't ideal, is it?
I won't let you get away.
Do I need to evolve that right then?
Home sweet home.
Nope.
Whoa, bud, cut the
That
rough
was
stuff.
a mistake to evolve that one at that time. Here we have a regular game on Steam called Fever Fight the Fever, which looks like they're calling it a casual first-person shooter. Yeah. If I had enough of a fandom, I'd frankly run a poll to say, hey, which are you more interested in? Old games that are more niche, or new games that are mostly garbage?
I serve in hopes of a better
This game is
tomorrow.
$5.39. English only, not making it to the fall list, obviously. Because I probably could, if I slowed down a little bit, cover older games more often that are more niche in favor of looking at the brand new games that come out. But honestly, that wouldn't really work. If anything, that is fan feedback that I could do absolutely nothing with, because it doesn't really solve anything if I just start talking about old games and started ignoring new games. Yeah. Once again getting wrecked. Just stick with that. Next we have a game called HIIS, which seems to be a flower picking game where you can do some magic and grow flowers too. It seems a little too asset flippy though. It's $9.99, English only. Like, watching the video of it, it seems like there is very little that is going
My
on,
quarry won't escape that easy.
and
Mother, father,
it seems like,
come on.
yeah, there's just kind of nothing here. Almost like a student project or an experiment that's halfway through to becoming a game. The one thing that's interesting is it seems like you can plant or use the magical spells that you create to cause some things to grow or get smaller or turn invisible or jump higher or So you're making several different items. And that's about it. Like, if anything, I'm overselling it by the looks of the trailer. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article, Disciples Liberation comes to PC and consoles in late 2021. Which, I guess this is a new game? I'm not familiar off the top of my head with the Disciples series. Here we've got a guy that's chained up and being tortured, or a guy or girl being tortured. Girl has a shirt, the guy not so much. They're carving some kind of spells onto him, which apparently the girl has tattoos also. So some kind of like magical ink. Then here you've got topless girl. So some kind of magical ink definitely going on about here. That's quite the teaser for a game. I don't know. They're calling it a dark fantasy strategy RPG, so I don't know how that really plays. And obviously they're not interested in focusing on how it plays at the moment. But that does look like a game that, well, I'll keep an eye out for to get more reviews. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Go behind the scenes with the studio behind Mario Kart Live at the GDC showcase. I feel like this technology particularly, which I think they put a fisheye lens here to make it look like the cart was moving faster than it really was. There probably are some technological tricks in that toy development. On the other hand, you can make an interesting argument that this might be the last big interesting physical toy to come out ever. There's a decent chance that that's not the case also, but that there's fewer and fewer toy stores and fewer kids that are interested in physical toys, and most physical toys are garbage and not that interesting. Remember, we're also kind of having in the middle of a shortage of chips, so making physical toys that need chips would be more difficult, and frankly making more plastic garbage is not ideal, and having manufacturing plants like in China make that kind of stuff is probably less likely to happen as time goes forward. NIS made a special page to highlight the Lunar games that they have on sale, so if you're specifically just looking for an NIS America game, they've got them all listed here, which, yeah, like Trails of Cold Steel, 40% off might be a decent price, and so a lot of these other games I kind of already have, or I've already thought of one way or another. That would be the other thing to do, is to look, if I was really going to buy anything, which I don't think I actually am because of the router situation, I would be going through my wish list to shop.
Home sweet home.
But I did definitely get more new information by just going through the store and browsing than going to my wish list, because whatever I look on my wish list is stuff I've already seen, obviously. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article here. Kingdom Hearts will make its PC debut as an Epic Store exclusive. We had already talked about this. The way they're going to get it is, I think, a bundle for all of them. So it might be pretty expensive, but either way, whether it's bundled or not, you're getting Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 plus 2.5 Remix, which is, I guess, the way they want you to play the first and second games. Then they want you to play Kingdom Hearts 2.8 Final Cut, which I think is probably a DLC expansion of the second game. And then they want you to play Kingdom Hearts 3 plus Remind as the third game. And I believe Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory is a middle game between 2 and 3, but there's a lot of other middle games.
Stop it.
Inherently, assuming Kingdom Hearts did come to Steam, I can't imagine I'd really want to ever play that series. I couldn't make it through the first one. Even if there's remix and remasters that maybe improve it a little bit, I would need some kind of mod that just got rid of most of the RPG elements and most of the grinding, and just let me play the story as it was. I kind of want just a boss rush mode at most.
It might be dry, but it's home. For the town's prosperity.
Oh. That sucked.
The hunt has only begun.
I'll look after this town for as long as I breathe.
The uncharted desert awaits.
For the town's prosperity.
And that still
Home
sucks,
sweet home.
but whatever. Here we have a game on Steam called Neon Warrior, which is a platformer with neon blocks. It's early access for $2.59 and 10 achievements that are numbers. Nothing there getting it to the fullest. TechRaptor has an article here. The PlayStation 5 DualSense drift lawsuit is being explored by the same law firm that did the Nintendo drift law firm. So clearly, I mean, this is what law firms do, is if they get a case that establishes precedent, then they will try to expand that case and find more people that they can bring settlements with and get more money out of it. It's not like there's a technology specifically in any of the controllers that would stop drift from happening, so yeah, I would not be surprised if there might be some settlements there. Let's see. Moving on, Gamatsu has Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1 gameplay teaser trailer. This is Frogwares. And the game is just called Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1. And I don't know if that means the game is episodic or not. It does kind of seem like, if this is Sherlock Holmes, this does seem like a very different
You must die.
Sherlock Holmes from the way the Frogware games has really depicted him, and maybe that's good, making him a little bit younger, making him look a little different. This is very visually polished, which they've started to do that with the Sherlock Holmes games. Perhaps it's a mistake to go that detailed and spend that extra effort on it, but maybe it just is a requirement also because it's Sherlock Holmes. I guess the question is, would you prefer to make a Sherlock Holmes game and try to sell it to all of the world, or would you prefer to make a murder mystery game that would have much less name recognition, but then you could animate it and draw it a lot cheaper? I don't know. I probably Sherlock Holmes though. Like, I think there isn't a big enough fandom of mystery, like Sherlock Holmes style games in general, that you succeed by being the number 2 or number 3 in that category. I think you're much better off going big, and I think Frogwares specifically has a kind of specific love for Sherlock Holmes, and that's why they are still making Sherlock Holmes games. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article here. A story-driven third-person action game called Binary Smoke has been announced for PC. You rebel against the ruling chaos and inspire a revolution. This is, again, a Epic Game Store announcement, so it's probably going to be an Epic Game Store exclusive. Yep, looks like it's kind of a zoomed out platformer. Maybe a run and dash. Well, it looks kind of like a top-down twin-stick shooter, but I don't know if how much fighting you're actually doing, or if it's just a full running game. Could you make a full running game these days, or would that just be too unsatisfactory? That's an interesting thought, certainly.
Yeah.
Let's go
I
hit
love this
that.
job. Of course I do.
I would have a hard time certainly playing or buying a game that came out immediately and said that you are just running for your life, and because that's basically what the horror games, half the horror games are, and there's just a lot of competition with things like that. Next we have a game on Steam here which seems to be a card-based tower defense game, and frankly, even though I like card games, I don't think tower defense improves your quality there at all. It's early access for $4.49. It's English and Korean, and it's just not visually polished enough to break from my first assumptions as far as it being a tower defense game.
My resolve is rock solid. Critical hit. How dare you mock me?
Let's see. Axiom Verge 2 as a PC version, which is kind of ridiculous. Of course, Axiom Verge has to have a Axiom Verge 2 has to have a PC version. Axiom Verge is only successful and popular because of PC. Wow. This does not look like the game I'm thinking about.
For you.
My throwing arm.
Yeah, that's because I was thinking of a completely different game. Yeah. This does look very different as far as the world designs than Axiom Verge 1. But now I do remember which game I was thinking about. I was thinking about the one that has all the weapons that you collect. And I can't think of the name of that game now. Whereas Axiom Verge was the Metroidvania game that was grotesque in its imagery a little bit, like H.R. Giger-esque, but not that much, and it wasn't that great of a game. I covered it relatively recently. Yeah, I was confusing it with Dead Cells, but I mean, what I said was the same. Like, of course, Axiom Verge will have a PC game. It was originally a PC game. If a Dead Cells 2 comes out, it too would have to have a PC version of the game.
Then, gentle ghosts, follow me.
Here we have a Gamma Sutra article. Zynga delivers record annual revenues thanks to its forever franchises. Things like CSR Racing, Empire and Puzzles, Merge Dragons, Words with Friends, and others. Which I'm a little surprised Zynga is still successful, but not crazy surprised. Here, TechRaptor has the same article. As far as here are the logos of the Kingdom Hearts games that are coming out. I feel like you are potentially in a position where you are going to
Got a job to do.
you are in a position here where you are going to oops, I done effed that up.
Die, cretin.
Loyalty is ironclad.
What do we have here?
Loyalty is ironclad.
Okay, well, I turned that around. Yeah, I feel like there's definitely going to be a percentage of people that just want every single Kingdom Hearts version of the game on PC, regardless of whether it actually is smart to do it that way. Like here, Gamatsu has the same articles, and Yeah, this is the middle game between 2 and 3, where you, I think, play as a completely different character, whereas you mostly play as Sora, I think, in all the other games. Yeah, this is like Melody of Memory, and you can see it looks completely different even in the overall image. Cost-wise, here they have the prices, so HD 1.5 plus 2.5 remix is $50, and it is a collection of several other games. And then 2.8 is $59.99, and it's a collection of, let's see, an episode, a movie, and another game. Which, honestly, I'm not sure that there actually is a standard RPG amongst these games. These might be different. Then Kingdom Hearts 3 plus Remind is another $60, and it seems to have some selling points, but it is just one game, and Melody of Memories is its own thing. Let's play this.
Fight together, everyone, for our future.
Evolve. Let's go ahead and, I guess, take that off.
You are done for. I will support the Vanguard. Carry on.
Legacy is written in
With
blood.
one fell blow.
Darn it all! Steel yourself!
You're mean.
Steel yourself!
Not even going to show the Square Enix trailer of the Kingdom Hearts games, even though it's an epic video, because I wouldn't be surprised one bit if Square Enix still tries to Content ID claim it. I suppose that is something that should be said, is all these games are coming to PC, but I don't for a second believe that Square Enix is going to let anybody stream any of those unless you have a special agreement with Square Enix. So yeah, if you think you're gonna be a YouTuber covering those games, I heavily question whether you're right there.
Our ability will bring courage to all.
And so that is one of those games where I'll be interested to see what happens when it comes out, if anybody actually does try to cover it. But you're often just greeted with silence if it is getting Content ID'd. Very few YouTubers go on major rants and announce that specific people have Content ID or blocked their content. A few do, and it's, but not as many, because so many people get blocked or Content ID claimed that it's just annoying to hear it a lot. Let's see. Moving on, TechRep has an article here. Space Engineers crossplay arrives for PC and Xbox. So you'll be able to have crossplay between those two platforms. Let's see. All of the Epic Games Store announcements were part of the Spring Showcase. Which, yeah, that's come and gone. Okay, what do we want to do? Random enemy follower. Play a bunch of these. Get back to 10. Do this.
Sheep counting. Don't count your tanukis just yet.
Let's see. Rush. Can't do that. Can't do that. Can't do that. Okay. Gametto has an article here. Disgaea 4 Complete Plus for PC network features updates are now available. Which that sounds like that would make the game probably better. But they're on to Disgaea 5, so they're kind of going in circles as far as adding content. The network features, I guess, add a map editor, another battle tournament, ranking battle, and more. So it doesn't feel like you are doing anything like a full co-op or player versus player. Maybe that's what Nether Battle Tournament is. Variety has this article. Jack Black is going to play Claptrap in the star-studded Borderlands movie. Can Jack Black play a character who isn't just Jack Black pretending to be a character is the question. Because if not, Claptrap is going to come off as very different in the movie. But I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the movie comes off differently. There's frankly too many stars already listed. And that also is going to play a role. Let's see. Well, what does this do? Does that.
Too slow.
And that. And then that. And then can't give anybody rush. I can restore to me. Just end the turn there. Game Searcher has an article. Asmodee Digital has acquired the digital multiplayer board game platform Board Game Arena, which I'm not sure I have a lot of faith in Asmodee Digital, but maybe that means something. Maybe they'll make some better versions or cheaper versions of their board games, although I doubt it. I think we are on the verge of seeing a lot more kind of garbage elements. There we go. Again, I can't scroll down for OpenCritic, but a game called 3 out of 10 is coming to the Epic Store as an exclusive. Well, no, actually, I don't think it's an Epic Store exclusive. I think it actually is now coming to like Amazon. No, it's heading to the Switch. I'm having to read the URL to read what these articles say. So 3 out of 10, which was once an Epic Store exclusive, is coming to the Switch. For whatever that matters to people. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article here. The final Star Wars Squadrons cosmetic drop arrives on May 2021. So does that mean that they are just done adding content to the game for Star Wars Squadrons? Which feels like that isn't that it hasn't been out that long. Or does that mean they've just given up on having cosmetic content? I kind of can't even blame somebody for having cosmetic content in a Star Wars game. We have Steven Universe Unleash the Light is coming to the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. It was previously an exclusive to Apple Arcade. I don't feel like Steven Universe is probably too popular at this point. It's probably moved on. Any kids that would have been watching Steven Universe, for regardless of your opinions on Steven Universe, which some people definitely do have some opinions on it, they've probably grown out of it and moved on to the next thing. And as a content curator, I probably missed the point at which it would make sense to have followed it. Well, also we've got a game here on Steam, on the Epic Game Store, called Remy Lore Lost Girl in the Lands of Lore, which is a roguelike anime game. You don't look at actual Epic Store game listings very often. But yeah, this must have been published by somebody I follow. Nicholas. Yeah. I think I followed him on Twitter, and that's where I got the link to that. Wouldn't be surprised if this game is already available on Steam. See, Gamma Sutra has a job listing. Playco is hiring for a remote job as a senior product manager. I'm going to try and skip any Steam listings for the time being and try to wrap up. A Ratchet & Clank Life of Pi animated short has premiered in Canada, which that's weird and almost not video game related at this point. Because there are these Ratchet & Clank movies and they are based on the video game, but it would be the equivalent of talking about the Sonic movie, which is something I didn't do and I think correctly decided not to cover. I'll draw a card and then recover 4 play points. I think you play that now. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Profits falter despite rising game sales at Sega Sammy, which, yeah. So Sega's not doing as well as it would like to be doing, obviously.
You're done for.
I'm gonna have to start going through some of these games again on Steam. I've left myself with just like a huge mess. Like, on top of needing to work on the router this whole weekend, I've also left me a whole huge backlog of games I need to look through. Well, anyways, No More Heroes has arrived on the Amazon Luna, which is weird because I don't feel like No More Heroes is available on Steam. Which kind of implies to me that I think No More Heroes is going to come to Steam at some point fairly soon, which is much more interesting than it coming to Amazon Lua by far.
It won't be long now. I walk my own path. Just don't.
Do that.
And that concludes today's sermon.
Yeah, we have a game called Zombie Waves on Steam, which we can immediately dismiss as a low effort asset flip zombie game. $3.65.
Best of luck to you. There is not a soul without sin.
Gemetsu has an article here. First person shooter Rico London has been announced for the PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Which, there might be something to this. It's like taking the Borderlands art style and finally somebody trying to do something different with it. I feel like there was a game that wasn't too different from this, where you would go into small environments and then time would kind of slow down and you would have to shoot a bunch of drug dealers. Yeah. I guess maybe that was early access, or maybe somebody saw that game and decided to do something different. Let's see. this,
You doing
this,
Hey,
this,
let's play.
and then in the turn.
Today we'll lift some heavy scriptures.
Yeah, and like I said before, at the moment Honey Pop 2 is the biggest game out, so Tech Raptor is putting out their increasing numbers of tips and trick guides, and this one they're just calling a tips and tricks guide as far as how to play the game and just generally know what the little icons in the match 3 game is all about. And they're giving you a bit more of a depiction of what kind of outfits you can expect to see overall, and how the double date concepts are going to boil down to. Okay, well, you gotta kill something, so we would want to kill that first,
Are my little trespasser.
and then
What an
hit
oath.
that,
By your will, O Lord.
and then in the turn. Let's see. Gamathra has the Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection Developer Diary number 3, difficulty and challenge, which is a video if you're interested in seeing it. Seems like they pretty much boiled it down to a article also. Alright. Well, as for new games on Steam that are adult, we have Mosaic Nico waifus, as in cat girl waifus, which are mosaic puzzles. Count out here for $1.59, bunch of languages. So we are still seeing that. It is Friday. I've kind of lost the plot as to whether they're still really sticking to the idea of only releasing adult games on Fridays so that they get buried. I think the answer to that is quickly becoming no, which that's a good thing. What is also a no is it doesn't seem like I'm going to get successful enough to get one more victory, so I'm going to just ignore playing Shadowverse for now and try and wrap up here. I'm also going to ignore the Humble Bundle today. Here we have a game called Mini Counties or Countries, which it does seem like it is a resource management game. They're tagging it as a strategy puzzle game. It's $9.99 with a third-party EULA. You know, it's really the price and the EULA that makes me decide I don't want this. Otherwise, I think you might have had a concept here that would have at least deserved the follow list. But nope, they've convinced me out of it. Next we have one called Deep Sea Valentine, which I guess Valentine's Day isn't close by, so you can definitely tell why Valve and Steam does not have a Valentine's Day sale, because it would just be like a whole bunch of sex games and very little ones that could promise any real romance. This animation style is not interesting enough here, nor does the game look particularly unique enough. $4.99, English only, no voice acting. Let's see. TechRep has an article here. This is surprising. Casual gaming studio Zynga is going to release games for consoles and PC. That'll be interesting, but I would hate to kind of see if Zynga started trying to get a whole bunch of microtransactions, or they're going to release PC games of only a certain number of games and not a lot of other and not other games that might be more interesting from Zynga, although I'm not sure if Zynga really even has that many interesting games. So here's one of the G4 new hosts that was announced. It's Olivia May. There was an Olivier Munn originally, and so she's tagged as a weeb and she's like into anime is what they said, and she's now a G4 host, although she seems like she might very well just be acting as like a esports commentator more than anything else. This is the other host. So like so far some of the celebrities that Adam Sessler has hung out with, they definitely don't feel like they are actually coming to G4, which makes a lot of sense. This is the other girl esports host with her, but she's got the whole SJW pronouns and trans rights and Black Lives Matter, which, yep, you can get away with that. So apparently right now she has kind of blonde hair, whereas it was bright pink hair before. And yeah, okay. We will see what G4 really is, and that's the real question, is what is this new G4 going to be? What content is it really going to create? If there's two esports commentators, how much of G4 really is going to be around esports, and how much of it is really going to be around either X-Play type content or Attack of the Show type content, or new type of content from new kinds of shows. That's the big question mark. Like, you can call something G4, but G4 was barely anything in the first place. Here we have a game on Steam called Deathbox, which seems to be like a mouse-driven bullet time hack and slash game. Visually, it's just not polished enough. $2.99 English full audio. Let's see, we're gonna have to start going through some of these games just to get back to where we are. Here we have a game called The Seasons Collection Spring, which probably an asset flip first-person shooter by the looks of it, with a terrible name. $9.99 third-party EULA. Nope to that. Here we have something called The God Unit, which looks like it's kind of an asset flip puzzle game. You know what it looks like? It looks like somebody has beat for beat stolen content and puzzles from some of the other puzzle games out there. Particularly the one I'm thinking about is the Turing Test. Like, one of these scenes in particular looked like something directly from the Turing Test. Whereas other parts of this certainly could have been taken from other 3D puzzle games. Regardless of whether any content is stolen or not, just to get away from that for a second, this is $9.99. It's English, Russian, Ukrainian, and it looks like garbage, so once again, not making it to the follow list. Let's see if I can just find some straight up garbage games to dismiss quickly. Here we have one called Gorilla Tag, which looks like it might be a VR game. Gorilla is running around, terrible animation. I assume playing tag. Early access, free to play, online play PvP. No to that. Here we have a game called Goat Over It, which looks like getting over it with Benet Foddy, but logically this actually makes more sense playing as a goat. And it makes a reference to Goat Simulator. $2.54 English, Chinese, or Russian. I'm going to put this on the follow list, even though it probably is a garbage game. Here we have a game called Tube Tussle, which seems like it's some kind of underwater game or player versus player game. It doesn't look particularly well polished. It's free to play, online PvP, English only. Here we have a game called Reticent Retribution, which looks like garbage, for $4.99. Here we have one called District 99, which looks like a low polygon first person shooter asset flip game for $1.99. English, allegedly full audio. Let's see, we have a game here called Dubstep Bird, which probably is just Flappy Bird with a bunch of force background so you can't even see the character while it's moving. 59 cents, English full audio. There is a thought there to having music and Flappy Bird merge, and putting dubstep in it is as good as any other music, but yeah, I still don't feel like there's a real game here. Next we have Orwell's Animal Farm. This game was announced a while ago. It came out December 10th, 2020, and I guess I missed it. Hand drawn. It kind of feels much like a visual novel more than anything. Most recently, in the last 30 days, it's mixed reviews. I'm going to put this on the follow list, but overall it's positive reviews. I would definitely want to see some more reviews though. This is $8.99 English full audio with several other languages. Yeah. As someone who hasn't actually read Animal Farm, it might be a little weird to play a text-based choice-driven narrative game based on that. Next we have a game here called Tartopolis, which looks like it's a black and white. I'm calling it a side-scroller. It's so dark. I can't really tell if there's an actual game here. They're calling it a side-scroller Metroidvania for $12.74. It's English only. I'm going to put it on the follow list, but I suspect reviews are going to quickly reveal that it's just way too dark. Here we have Sudoku RPG, which doesn't really look like Sudoku that much. Well, that does. So do you just use RPG Maker type elements to walk around, and then you get to a specific spot and you have to do a Sudoku? I don't know if there's a game concept there that makes sense. That seems silly. But it also seems kind of innovative. $2.69 English, Korean, and Japanese. I'm gonna put this on the follow list just to see what people think of it. Like, there might be something to that, but if you have to solve like a full Sudoku, that would be pretty crazy. But it does maybe only give you a few empty holes, so it would be quicker. I wouldn't be surprised if there are certain Sudoku puzzles they give you that are just one or two empty places to fill in as tutorial puzzles. Here we have Little Nightmares 2. This is an actual game that we've heard about, so it's $29.99, or the deluxe edition for $39.99, which seems really expensive for what I think this game is. I'll put it on the follow list, but there is certainly a question as far as just Little Nightmares 1. Like right now, this is overwhelmingly positive and it's 8% off, but if you want the complete edition, which includes several bits of DLC, you're still paying $30 for it, and that is certainly asking a lot. Next we have a game on Steam here called Endless Corona, and I would think that Steam would not allow you to name your Infinite Runner game. That's a low effort game with Corona in the name. $5.99 English, Spain Spanish, and Simplified Chinese, which is an odd combination of languages too. Next we have Balance Ball, which really, this is just a selection of garbage games to remind everybody that every couple days there's a whole new handful of garbage games. Early access, 89 cents English, Russian. I'm almost to the point where I've closed enough tabs to confirm that there aren't any more new tabs to talk about. Here we have Grasscutters Academy as an idle game, and that looks like garbage. It's English only. It's free to play, but then there's a whole bunch of DLC for $6.57. So no to that. Yeah, and I think, yeah, we have now had confirmation. So there's about 5 tabs of new games that I could either power through, but I'm 3 hours and 30 minutes into this, so I'm not going to. I'll just leave those for Monday. And then there's probably about 15 tabs of old games for me to check, and I'll probably do that over the weekend without any real confirmation. And unless I have to reload the tab, there's no new game bundle at Humble Bundle. The new layout has made that way easier to figure out. And then that could bring me to Twitter. And we will scroll down Twitter and see if there's any new news. It's been a long stream for a day where I specifically said I wanted it to be a short stream, but frankly, I say that almost every stream. And we started fairly late, so it's now fairly late into the evening. We did make a decent amount of success as far as getting victories on Shadowverse. And honestly, I don't know if that much has really been tweeted out. I think it is also at this point worthwhile saying that the only reason why I can still manage to use Twitter is because I've done a very good job of curating who I follow, and there's a very limited number of people I follow. So I am hearing a lot of, well, mostly SJW liberal celebrities talk about how terrible Twitter is these days, but they are also kind of the people that in part make Twitter terrible for people. So I'm just not feeling that same emotion at the same point. I feel like Twitter actually works very, very well. It works way better than Facebook does or Reddit does. I'm a little even trepidatious about G4 having a Reddit subreddit instead of just having their own forum. And if I was going to start some kind of celebrity forum, I would definitely try to use something that I owned. If that means Discord to start off with, that's fine. That's still way better than Reddit. But ideally, I would want to have my own forum on my own website and have to deal with the spam filtering and all of that myself. I know, but I don't want any controversy around a bigger site like Reddit to come back on me, particularly when you've seen there have been multiple companies that have tried to start like free speech forums, and then they immediately get attacked by the likes of CNN and other mainstream news sites. Gab most recently is now being attacked, and everything they don't like is immediately labeled as being hate-filled, as if the whole internet isn't filled with idiots that are posting hate-filled messages. Speaking in the opposite, though, OpenCritic has an article I see here. State of Decay 2 is getting an in-game Black Lives Matter shirt, which I don't know. If money is not being donated to some kind of charity for buying that, then that seems very virtue signally. And even at that, it seems very virtue signally to wear a in-game shirt that supports a political movement. That seems dangerous, to say the least, and inflammatory. So, yeah. Gamma Sutra has an article here. The Trials of Mana remake has topped 1 million digital sales and shipments. It would have been a lot higher had they not done such a bad job of making that remake and how terrible it ran on PC. I'm just scrolling down the Twitter feed still. I stopped scrolling for a while there as I was talking. I think I've seen everything though. Either that or my Twitter feed just didn't refresh. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna call that as seen. And in this stream, as always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.